In this video, we will show you how to replace your engine starter on this Honda Accord. This will be located along the passenger side of your engine compartment. Let's get into it. Okay friend, let's get started on our job. To be able to gain access to our starter, we're going to have to remove the upper air intake system here. Now along the passenger side of the engine compartment, we're going to remove the air filter housing and air inlet tube. To remove the air filter housing, carefully lift up on this plastic unit, lift it up and out of place. Quick inspection, set it aside. To remove the upper air filter housing, we'll be removing 4 8mm headed mounting bolts, holding it down. We'll pause here and make our way down towards the engine. You'll find there's several areas on this that has things attached. We'll lift up on this area to remove the wire from the housing. Making our way towards the engine, as I mentioned, we'll dislodge this cable from its mounting point. In this area, we'll be squeezing this clamp, slide it out of place. You can pull that right out of there. Up along the top area here, you should have an area where the hose slides into and also an area where the wire slides into. Ours looks as though it's already dislodged. Go ahead and lift them up and out of there. Let's get this electrical connector. Quick inspection for corrosion. Just behind there, you have another rubber hose. We'll squeeze on that clamp and slide it out of the way as well. Just make sure that's soft and pliable. Now behind that area, we can start loosening the clamp. You'll find that you'll be using a Phillips head to loosen this just enough that we can slide it out of place away from the throttle body assembly. Now we have clear access to the mounting hardware and the wiring leading to the starter. But before we start removing any of that, let's remove our negative battery terminal from the battery. We'll use a 10mm to loosen our mounting hardware. You only need to loosen this enough that you can remove it from the battery. A quick inspection and set that aside so it's making no contact. Let's have a look in this area. You can see that you have a hose coming across the top area of the starter. That's held in place with a bracket. The bracket is held in place to the starter with a 10mm headed bolt. Remove that bolt. And we can also move this around. You'll find that this bracket that holds the coolant hose in place also holds this wiring harness in place. Take hold of the wiring harness and pull it away from the starter. A quick inspection of the wire to make sure it's not corroded or damaged, and we'll set that aside. Moving just under that, you're going to find that you have a rubber protective boot. Dislodge the boot. That's going to expose another mounting nut holding a power wire in place. While holding that boot out of place, we'll be using a 12mm to remove the mounting nut. Now you should be able to remove the wire from the starter. Use our pick for that. Set that aside. Now we can move along to removing our two 14mm headed mounting bolts that hold the starter in place. They're a little difficult to see, but if you were to look at your new starter, you'll find that you have one over where the solenoid is, and then the one that is harder to see is on the opposite side, right over here. Looking down in there, I can see this one fairly easily. As I mentioned, the one on the rear side is a little bit harder to see. Let's start with the one that's hardest to get to. I'll be using a swivel socket for this. My magnet in here. Now we can grab that forward one. Right in through here. That forward bolt is a little shorter than the rear bolt. Now we can remove the starter. I'm going to have to try to finagle it out of here. Just twist it. There it is, friend. From the original starter, we're going to take this and transfer it over to the brand new one. Just go ahead and take hold of that. We'll give it a little wiggle. Give it an inspection, make sure it's soft and pliable, not torn, worn, or damaged. Now we'll slide this into place. Press it on, make sure it's secure. The next thing we'll do is clean and inspect the mounting point. Reach in through here. Just give this a quick wipe. That looks good. Now we can install our brand new starter. Before you put it in place, have a look where that electrical wire will go. It's a good idea to remove the mounting nut now and set that aside. Get that washer off of there. Now we can take this starter and we'll start putting it into position. When we do so, we want to make sure we have it in the proper alignment, so this is along the forward, downward side. Now we can get ready to install the starter. Let's get this in position. Now we'll align it and install our mounting hardware. Of course, I'm going to start with the forward one. It's a little bit easier to gain access to. Start each of these in by hand before you snug either. Let's get that rearward bolt in there now. This one's pretty much down along the transmission. It's a little lower than what you kind of think it is. Nice. With them both started in, we'll snug them up and then torque them to 32 foot-pounds. let's torque them down. Now we can torque these to 32 foot-pounds. We'll move along to the wiring. Before you install the wiring, you want to make sure that you inspect both sides of the power wire, which leads to the starter itself. If it looks like it needs to be cleaned up, go ahead and use some fine sandpaper. Give it a light scuffing. That looks good. Install the power wire onto the starter. After that, you can continue on with your 13mm headed mounting nut. There we are. All right. Now you can torque this to 6.5 foot-pounds. If you have a hard time torquing this, just make sure it's nice and snug. Slide your protective boot into place. You want to make sure you protect this area so it does not ground out. There we are. Move up from there to your signal wire. We'll make sure that we slide this into place and double check to make sure it's secure. There we go. We'll press that right on there. Double check to make sure it's secure. If you have the protective boot, install that now. Let's make our way to the top of this bracket here. We're going to put the bracket that goes around the coolant tube first. After that, we have our other cable bracket here. Take your 10mm headed bolt and slide it right on through all three of those areas. Got the two brackets and then the starter there. We'll start it in by hand. Double check to make sure they're secure. Let's reinstall our air intake system. Carefully take this and put it in position. We'll slide it into place along our throttle body there. Once you have it in the proper placement, you need to continue on with tightening that clamp. Roll that up into a position we can gain access. Use our Phillips head here. Give it a tug to make sure it's completely secured. Let's get our wiring in place here. That just goes right down inside this groove along the front. Now we can secure the hose. Slide that on. Squeeze the clamp, slide it into its original position. Make sure you can see hose on both sides of the clamp. Give it a little tug. We'll connect our electrical connector up here. Once again, listening for a click. Double check to make sure it's secure. Get that in there. Let's get this tube in place. Slide that in. Use our clamp. Let's get our cable into position as well. this way towards the air filter box. Let's get the air filter box in place. Let's get these mounting bolts in here. Now we'll install this. Slides right in along the front. Snap it down. Reconnect your negative battery terminal. Press that on there as far as possible. Tighten it up with your 10mm wrench. Make sure you got good contact. Okay, friend, we finished our installation. At this point, you want to hop in the passenger compartment, start up the vehicle a couple of times, and ensure the starter functions as it should. After that, go ahead and close the hood and take your vehicle for a road test. Thanks for watching.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.